Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, and thank you for joining us. We are here to join in a discussion with Marcy and Christy around S4HANA versus ECC's sales order monitoring and ATP today. For those of you who have not followed this series, we have taken a deep dive into what is different between S4 and ECC. If you missed any of our previous webinars, they are all available on demand on the Reveal website. Today's presentation will approximately last 30 minutes, followed by a time to ask Christy and Marcy some questions at the end. Please feel free to capture your questions in the question or chat section during the webinar. And at this time, I would like to introduce you to today's speakers, Marcy and Christy. Christy is an associate partner and thought leader with Reveal and drives for supply chain outcomes through active engagements. She has 20 plus years of practical integrated supply chain management experience across a variety of industries. And Marcy is an integration advisor here at Reveal with 22 plus years of experience, focused exclusively on helping organizations map customized data and processes into standard SAP functionality. So please, let's welcome Christy and Marcy, and if you both could take the floor.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. It's our pleasure and our privilege to get to spend some time with you and discussing around what's new in sales order monitoring and ATP and S4. First of all, if this is exciting for you, if this gets you energized, welcome to the party. And for those of you who are maybe a little nervous or worried about what's coming next, let me give you a spoiler alert before we even get started. So many of our fundamentals remain the same, but we're building on that foundation and we're getting some new features and functions, and that's really what we want to highlight for you today. The last thing I want to tell you is that we are going to be focused on the capabilities that come standard with S4. So if you're really interested and excited in learning more about what's happening with Advanced Available to Promise, or AATP, make sure you go back and watch our very first webinar of the series from this year. It focuses on all of the different advanced features that come out with S4. There's also going to be a white paper that's coming out, so you can check that out as well. I'm so excited to have a chance to talk with you this morning, and then also this is one of my very favorite people that we're going to be talking with. So we're going to go through this topic together, and her name is Marcy Koo. So Marcy, if you would advance one more slide for me, I'd like to just talk through what our topics will be. We'll start off talking about sales order management and monitoring, and then we're going to jump into the available to promise. And lastly, we'll focus on some of the navigation and the new GUI pieces that are coming out between S4 and the Fiori workspace. But first, let's start on the hard one for me. And Marcy, I'm a little sad. Say it ain't so. Are you telling me we're really going to say goodbye to the sales order monitor? I've been telling everyone this is my very favorite exception monitoring tool for the order to cash space. Is it really going away?
Oh, I'm right there with you, Christy. I was just heartbroken to find out that our beloved VA06 is not going to be in S4. I mean, from the time this came out, this started to be the best place to go for a one-stop shop for setting up your exception monitoring for sales order management. I mean, as you know, we could see right away whether there were rejected items, things on delivery block, on credit hold, whether something was unconfirmed or it was late going into delivery, right? We could see partial confirmations as shown here, and we're not going to have it anymore. I'm so bummed, but we do have new things coming in S4, and let me show you one of them. Okay, when we get into the GUI, we'll start there. Now, we know we had expanded selection criteria over in VA05N in ECC, but we didn't have the robust data set when it returned the results. Well, SAP has heard all of us, and they've expanded the selection criteria even more. I mean, how long have we been wanting to be able to run for more than one sales organization, or just select document types, or multiple materials? Okay, we're able to do that now in the S4 GUI. But you see, we get a lot of the same data set that we have options, and we still can get to our standard icons to be able to vary our layout. And we can get into our dates and so forth. But we also have, because of the restructuring, we also have additional status fields we can look at. So this is going to be a help to some folks. Still not our exception monitor from the sales order monitor, but it's still a good standby. It was always a rock. It's even more of one now.
I really like that, you're alluding to the listening piece of things. I know on the planning side of the house, we get so many new things that are really things that, folks have been wanting for a long time. So it's great to hear that SAP is focused on delivering some of the things that, the business community has really been asking for. So, I mean, this is cool and all. I'm glad that there's an expanded search criteria and that it's built on the same foundation we had before, but I don't know. I'm still really missing that sales order monitor. Bet you are too. What else do we have?
Well, most of the things when we go into the GUI for S4, not a whole lot has changed. The changes have been they're really kind of subtle. Yes, we've lost some things, but most things for at least the order to cash arena will look very much the same. Okay. To get to where all the new functionality is, it's going to be out in Fiori. Okay, so hello, new way of thinking. When we go into Fiori, we get out of the standard GUI, table or grid type control, ALV types, and we're into much more graphical tile type of interaction. But we get multiple ways that, based on needs or perspectives, to be able to look at our sales orders. For example, there's track sales orders, where we can see not only our open sales orders, but if they're encountering a problem, and where is that problem? In order processing, supply or delivery, something in transit. And there, whoops, forgive me folks, see if I can back up one. Got a little trigger happy. You can still be able to get to other menu options. You can switch up what's in your layout. So those functionalities are still inherent in GUI, but you just access them and they look way, way different. You also get things like the cockpit, where your open sales orders have been grouped in already by common characteristics into subsets for further analysis. For example, the sales order fulfillment tile on the My Sales Overview, I can drill into any of these and get to the detail involved. I also can quickly get over here into my quick links to be able to do various tasks like create a sales order or a return. But when it comes to the heavy transactional users, your customer service agents or inside sales, they may find it more comfortable to work in the managed sales orders, where on this one, for example, it by default, in addition to having all of your menu options, it comes by default, you can get into your, boy, my computer is wanting to be very touchy today. It had too much coffee. You can sort it by requested delivery date, and that way that keeps what's overdue and today's work right in front of you, so it never falls off the radar. That's top of the list stuff must take care of. It may be a little bit harder over in the track sales order unless you really work with what's displayed in your columns, because you see your requested delivery date here is listed more down in the details. So, but the point is you've got a lot of options. Okay, it can be a little bit mind-boggling, but it's going to represent a way different way of thinking than we've had in the GUI.
Oh, I do see some similarities here, and I definitely see the improvements. And what I really like about this is it really seems like it's pushing the information to us. So, if we used to use the BI reports to get like some widget style things to help us then know where to go look in ECC, this is kind of similar to that, except it's all directly within the system and it's real time. I think I could definitely get excited about this, Marcy.
Oh, definitely, definitely, but there's more, okay?
Oh.
We can get into doing drill down into any of those by selecting some of those, whether it be the order, or if you were in the my sales overview, and as I did here, sales order fulfillment issues, I can drill into that, and I can see how many days overdue it might be, the actual order number, when was the delivery date, what are the issues, and I can further drill into and get to the order. And also, as you're drilling in, you get functionality where an end user can add links to that particular option. So you can click on it, but you might be able to branch to, say, create sales order or something of that nature. But we also get some new functionality like this one. How many clients, Christy, have we been at that have asked us, well, how does SAP get anything, measure anything or report anything that's close to OTIF, on time in full? Well, one of the new apps that's available in Fiori is called Analyze Delivery Performance, Shipped as Planned. Now in this, you can see you have a variety of different graphs. You've got different buckets that you can customize and map things into. So that's going to really be a benefit to an organization.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it's going to be a huge improvement. I love the idea that we can break into those cycle delays and understand by reason type. That would help us to really be able to focus on the problem and work hard to improvement. I know that our friends in finance will be really excited about this too, because it seems like, Marcy, if we really worked at this, we could start to take days out of that order to cash cycle, which is huge.
Oh, yes. Yes, and you can take the days out of the order to cash cycle and you reduce the day sales outstanding. That's going to be a big win.
For sure. I'm still a little sad to see the sales order monitor go, but I think that this is part of change. So I'm excited about this new approach.
Indeed.
Okay, Marcy. Here's the big one though. What is happening now with ATP? I know there are a lot of hopes and dreams as well as fears in this arena. Can you help demystify it for us?
Well, I can give it a shot, at least touch on it a bit. Now, most of us in ECC are aware of something called the scope of check, or maybe it's new to you. The scope of check is basically where you define the rule between the checking group specified on a material master and the stage of processing and transactional area of the system, in this case, a sales order. When you combine those two, now you have a selection of MRP elements that you can say, okay, these particular elements, stock in this particular disposition, as it were, can be considered available to promise for a customer order.
Right, right.
So when we get over into S4, you see the layout changes, but the content is all the same. In fact, it's organized a bit more cleanly, I guess. And when you look at it in Fiori, it looks the exact same way.
I can definitely see an improvement here. I feel like it's so interesting, not many configuration objects are readily available for the business community to look at, but because this is really rules around how we're conducting that check, I think a lot of us go in and look at this regularly. It's nice to see it's a little better organized. I feel like that is going to be easier for people to read. And I like that it's still built on the same foundation as, what's familiar and what we're used to.
Indeed, so that at least should give us some comfort in that what may be working for us today in ECC can still work for us in S4 when we make our transition. But there's something else you were mentioning. You're mentioning the other day about MRP areas. Can you bring that up again? I'm drawing a blank on the last part of the point you were making.
Yeah, absolutely. So in S4, in many ways, the master data has been simplified for us. And so there's some things that are just kind of inherently there. One of the things that is now inherently there is an MRP area. So MRP areas just exist when we get to S4. Now, we don't actually activate them for materials until we go in and we actually extend those materials to particular MRP areas. But we now have the ability to run ATP at the MRP area level. Now, if you haven't defined an MRP area in that plant beyond just the plant, then it really doesn't change for you because that MRP area is representative of your plant. But if you do need to specify or delineate additional planning by MRP area and you want to limit that scope of check, you're able to do that. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That was that last point. That thought had just gone to the Bahamas for some reason, and it's had a good time. It's not coming back.
Can it take me with it? I think that feels like a great place to be.
Yeah, we could all go. Okay, but there's even more that's coming with Fiori when it comes to available to promise. One of the biggest sticking points in using ATP in the order to cash arena was it was so hard to monitor for those unconfirmed or partially confirmed orders. But now there's an app out there called Sales Order Items Back Orders. And even on the tile, it gives you configurable measures that you can make these. They're usually something that you can define and set your buckets accordingly and giving them a meaningful title. And as you drill into them, it will show you by, say, a calendar week. You can change a whole lot of the parameters and the displays on here. But again, you have drill down capability. And as you can look at it, you've got confirmed, delayed, partially confirmed, and unconfirmed. And on any of these, I could go in and I could click that particular unconfirmed box with the 3, and I could get down to the 3 elements. And there's further reporting that can be done there and more KPIs. But this is functionality that we've been starved for in ECC.
Without a doubt. I think, a lot of us have gone out, we've created, reports outside the system, Power BI, Click, Tableau, lots and lots of different ways to try to monitor and manage this. So to be able to do this all within the same workspace, I mean, this looks leaps and bounds versus what, we've necessarily seen previously in ECC. So I'm really excited about this. I think that would make a big difference. The other thing is, there's just so much potential here, but it's all based on that familiar foundation. That's got to help folks feel a little bit more comfortable.
Oh,
and, and if you do want to know more about the advanced available to promise, again, you can check out the first webinar because that's where we get a lot of additional features. And, with APO sunsetting, there's an opportunity there. This is the next generation and available promise functionality, everything from allocation to more advanced substitutions, even at the location level. So lots and lots of good stuff there. Okay, I have just one more really big question for you today, Marcy, if I may.
Certainly.
This one, right? Now let's get down to the nuts and bolts of what it's really going to be like in terms of making this transition from GUI that's super familiar to us and the way we've been working in ECC. Let's be honest, the look and feel has not changed a lot in the last 20+ years. So now we're in a whole new world where we can take advantage of a brand new look and feel. So I'd love to know a little bit more about that. What is, it seems like we're spoiled for choice in how we might interact with the system. What are some of the options, and what are you seeing as people start to embark on their journey to change here?
Well, when we first went into SAP, when we first implemented, we were plunged as organizations into this world of these acronyms, these T codes, right? VAO1, VAO2, MDO4, MIGO, ME21N. The list goes on and on and on and on. And over time, we got used to these. We made the transition. We got to a point that we knew pretty much where to go and how to get there without even thinking. Even wrote keystroke patterns. that we do every day. We know we double click on here and we select that and we click this, you know, and we know exactly where we're going. We're not thinking about the actual steps to get there.
Right.
We know where we're getting to, where we need to get to, and what we need to do once we're there. That's where our mind is. Okay. It became a difficult thing to try to get people to rise above the transaction, to reconnect with the business transaction, this part of the business transaction actually being facilitated here and the data being captured about that. But like I said, we were doing a lot of this, it's become unconscious. When we get into S4, our known and rote ways of working are going to initially be disrupted. There's no two ways about it. Even in the GUI, though the changes might be subtle and it may look the same, you have subtle differences. Toolbars that were now on the bottom are now on the top. Something that was your scroll bar, oh, now it's split. Now there are two of them. There's an inner and an outer. There's an upper and a lower. And you can get two of them across the bottom. Which one controls which? Because the segments of the screen can start moving independent of each other. You get out into Fiori, and it's also going to be a bigger leap for those that have been, say, spent more time in GUI. Like the longer you've been in the GUI, this may be the bigger leap because you don't have a T code anymore. It's now an app and it's got a name. And the name may not be anything similar to what it was in the GUI. You've got new names. And then which one, you've got roles and which app is in which role. Those roles may not necessarily match up to your organizationally defined roles. So it's going to be a learning curve, but it's a really worthwhile learning curve that really gets you to the milk and cookies, as you say.
So, you know, I think I found myself lost in this alphabet soup more than one time, Marcy. It's definitely been a struggle for me. So I imagine that recalibrating to the Fiori app names is going to be the next piece. But I think, you know, because we get full descriptions, hopefully that becomes easier for us to navigate over time. You know, and for those who are not yet exploring a Fiori world, my sage advice would be to learn the data flow in SAP. That's like knowing the passwords and the secret handshakes to work your way through the system. The more you're focused on how the data and information flows through the system, the easier it becomes to work your way through. And, you know, being able to use that logic tree, you know, with the standard SAP menu rather than just the transactions that are related to your particular role can help make it easier to work your way through the system, help, you know, make a lot of that murkiness maybe become a little clearer, make it, you know, let the fog rise out of the way so that you can see what it is that's, you know, actually happening.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Christy. Totally agree.
Marcy, if you were to give some sage advice or parting words to folks today, what would be your next piece of wisdom that you would offer? How would you bring this conversation home?
Okay, so with I guess the key takeaways is while there are new features out in the GUI, most of your benefit is going to be found in managing to make that transition to Fiori and its analytics and new functionality. Indeed, even with we've seen in Fiori versus the GUI, there can be screens that look very much just identical the way they did in ECC when you're in the GUI, but you might have new fields available to you on that same transaction from within Fiori, and that's the only place that they are. So it's really going to behoove us to take the time to really make that transition seamless as possible and allow the time for adjustment that there's going to be needing. I would say the second one is many pieces of functionality will continue to work just like they always have. They may look and feel a bit different, but it can, in many ways, still function like it does today, while there is also new things available. Third, and this is particularly with regard to that transition from the T-code world into the app world. And you think about the whole of an organization's user base and who are heavy SAP users, how long have they been interacting with the GUI, and maybe some younger people who maybe haven't been on it that long, or maybe grew up in the app world. You know, there's going to be a learning curve. So change management in charting that path forward is going to be critical, okay? Particularly when it comes to the assignment of apps and roles to a given user. Okay, and make sure that there is ample hands-on time to aid users in making that transition before business depends on it. You know, so often, like when we went into ECC, where, you know, just for time's sake, it was basically orientated in terms of user education or training, is to you click on this or you enter this T code, you click here, you press that, and you press save. Very little attention devoted to operation and navigation. And we find that today going into our clients. You know, one of the reasons we start off with, you know, one of our first sessions is being operations and navigation.
Yeah.
Well, make sure to devote sufficient time to that when you try to transition into Fiori, and maybe a little bit more time and education, not just training. Show them how it works. Make sure they understand it. Make sure they start understanding how they can work with it and leverage it. You know, because it is in the app world, you can do a lot of customization of your apps, but that can start to hamper team collaboration, as what I see in my app is not what you see when you run it. You know, so those would be the big ones, I would think. Can you think of others?
I think you're nailing it. I mean, I think first of all, appreciate that it is a change, and then also create, you know, a workspace that makes sense for you. You know, think about your favorites folders, you know, today, and then, you know, how do we create that now going into S4, and then, as you say, standardize, so we're all looking at the same information, at least at the beginning, and so we really are familiar with what it is that we're looking at.
Indeed.
Marcy, go ahead.
I was going to say, and it goes right to saying that I've heard you say so many times, change is real, change is hard, and sometimes change is real hard. But, you know, there was the hue and cry years ago when Office changed its interface. Now it's second nature to us. You can't make that change.
For sure. For sure. We can do this. So I just want to say thank you, Marcy. This conversation's been awesome. I really, really appreciate it. And I think, you know, we have so much to look forward to, and it really doesn't sound quite so scary now. What I would love is to go back over to Kelly and see if we have any questions from the audience that we could answer. Are you up for that?
Oh, sure. And thank you, Christy, for helping guide us through this and for your questions. I really appreciate it and your input.
Absolutely. Kelly, do we have any awesome questions from the audience that we can answer?
We do, but before we jump into those questions, I just wanted to talk about something that we have coming up. If Marcy could switch to the next slide for me. So really quick, thank you both. That was a lot of great information, and we do have some questions from the audience, but I just wanted to let everybody know we do have a half-day masterclass coming up on September 21st, and this is going to be presented by Christy, our speaker who is online right now with us. And she is going to take you through about how you can leverage IBP's capabilities for a more effective and efficient way, or an effective S&OP process, excuse me. And so this will be available. You can register right here on our website, and I will also put the link into the chat. So we hope you can attend. So just wanted to throw this out there for you. And then Marcy, if you could switch to the next slide, and I am gonna start out with our first question from the audience. And what is your company? Their company is going on S4, but it is not using the apps first. Will the T codes be the same?
Yes. Yes, the T codes will still remain the same going in the GUI. And there are some organizations that do choose to go GUI first and then transition in it because of that learning curve a lot of times into using the GUI. But the T codes VA05 will still be VA05. VA01 will still be VA01 and so forth. There are some T codes just like our beloved VA06 that do go away, but it's usually kind of counterbalanced with some other functionality or beefed up functionality that remains.
You'll be okay on day one. That's what she's saying. You'll be all right on day one. The transactions you need in order to work through the business will still be there.
Thanks, Marcy. And it looks like our next question was, our organization has struggled to get up and running on ATP. We can't seem to keep our confirmation dates and experience a lot of churn. Do you have any recommendations?
Okay, Christy, that sounds like that's right up your alley.
She's handing it to me, guys, because I usually get to work on the planning side. And here's the big message. ATP is entirely dependent on predictable and stable supply. So when we go into our ATP journey, a lot of times we're thinking, oh, this is a way to get those pesky customers to have better behavior, or we're going to restrict the amount of sales orders that are coming in to what we have available, or this will help us get a control of the demand signal. It's really not about that. It's about being able to look at what you have the highest level of confidence in, whether that's the inventory in your four walls, because you cycle count regularly and you can count on those numbers that are there, or your production schedule because you've got great schedule adherence, or you've got reliable replenishment from your suppliers. But if you are finding a lot of churn, a couple of things might be going on. First of all, we might be running something called rescheduling too often. The other thing that you might be seeing is that you're promising too broadly. So as hard as it may seem, you may actually have to take a step back or to the side before you can take a step forward. It's not always the best thing to go out and promise all the way out into, say, the planned horizon if you're not ready to do that yet. So there's some really good guidelines for what you can and should include in your ATP check. And then that helps to make your promises have better quality, and then very slowly but surely you can expand that across time as you're working through things like your master data, business rules and business behavior alignment, as you're working through your transactional data cleanup and your housekeeping, and slowly maturing there. But yeah, as planners, we have to come to terms as planners and buyers that, customer service, sales support, the commercial teams are all customers of ATP, and it's our responsibility to be able to deliver a quality ATP check that's reliable for them.
Thanks, Christy. It looks like we have two more questions from the audience. I have one that is asking that, or they saying they would like to check how to draw the BOP results.
How to draw the BOP results. Marcy, that's not resonating to me. Do you?
No, I'm not connecting with that.
Maybe there's an acronym there that we don't know. Could you help us with the acronym? Maybe we can come back to that question.
So I will jump to the next question, and hopefully they can put in some supporting description in there for us. The next question I have is, can ATP be constrained by loading and shipping limits? Just storage capacity does not meet our company's needs.
I don't think ATP can.
It'd be more on like the shipment building side, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
More on the TM side, guys, the transportation management side, to do those containers container builds and those kinds of things. You can certainly have sales orders check for things like weight limits, but when you get into actual like cubing out and sizing, I think probably we're bleeding into some more advanced features there that wouldn't be supported by standard ATP. Great question, though. I love that question.
Yeah, it gives me something to go think about. Now I want to go dig some.
Well, definitely do that. And I think we can probably reach out if we find something different, but off the top of my head, that's what I would think.
And the last question I have, we didn't get any feedback from the previous question, but we have one more we'll take. How will GATP change to MTO?
So GATP, as APO is sunsetting, the next generation of that is what we have coming in AATP, so the Advanced Available to Promise Suite in S4. Now they are not one for one, and what I mean by that is that there are pieces of functionality in AATP that work entirely differently from how they worked in GATP. But what it is going to give you a heavy focus on is things like being able to look across your network to do location substitution, really being able to focus on the life cycle of the product or eligibility for substitutions and more complicated and complex rules there. Lots of help for backorder processing and rules-based ATP. So many new pieces coming. We could spend an entire hour just talking about that and not even scratch the surface. But if you're using GATP and APO right now, this is going to be your next generation replacement to that. Just know that there's some things that are different.
All right, you guys, this looks like that was our last question. And if anybody has any other questions that we may have missed, please feel free to shoot them over to info@revealvalue.com, and we will see if we can get someone to help you out with that. Again, thank you both, Christy and Marcy, and our audience. And that was our last question for the day. If we could switch the deck on this next slide, and this will be our next upcoming webinar. This one is Business Guide to S4 versus ECC's Purchasing Spend Analysis. And this will be on October 18th, and we will get this information out to you well in advance. So again, thank you everyone, and we hope to see you at the next webinar and check out our upcoming boot camp. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Marcy. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye.
Bye.